Hello, I am just going live to do some photo editing. Going to go through my pictures from Maine, which I don't have a lot of, and I just think it's fun to share my process a little bit. So welcome if you're hopping in. These are from the pictures on the screen right now are from a photo shoot a few weeks ago when I went out and explored the lupin fields in New Hampshire, where I live, and these are very near there. But I'm going to be importing my Maine photos here next. I just want to show you guys the process I use, and I use Capture One. I'm not using Lightroom, but the processes I do in Capture One are very similar to my understanding of Lightroom. I'm not familiar or use Lightroom. I probably should because I pay for it with the Adobe tools, but I just never learned it. So this is the program I use. And I can see the chat. You can jump in the chat, leave your comments, say hi. I'd love to see who's watching and say hi to you guys. But feel free to just zone out and watch me edit my photos too, whatever floats your boat. It's kind of late, but I felt like doing this because it's kind of hot and just don't really feel like sitting down and laying in bed and just sweating. So I'm just going to sit up for a little while, cool down with some ice water, chill. So say hi everybody, whoever's joining me, wherever you are. I'm streaming to Facebook, YouTube, and X. So wherever you're at, let me know where you're watching. I'm always curious. So the first thing I do when I'm ready to import photos, I haven't done that yet, I create a new collection or a place to import the photos. And you can see I have a few projects or groups, and one of them is New Hampshire. So now I'm going to make a new group, and I'm going to call it Maine. And can you guys see that pop up? Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so I'm going to call that Maine because these are going to be my main pictures. And I just kind of like to organize things by place and subject. That's just how I organize things, and always by time. So this whole catalog is my 2024 catalog. And I used to do it monthly or 2 months catalogs. So I'd have like May and June 2020, June and July 2020, etc. And I don't shoot as much photography anymore, so I don't need to do that. The only reason to condense these catalogs to smaller ones or shorter time spans is quantity of images, because when these catalogs get massive with like lots of weddings and stuff like that, it just becomes overwhelming, and the program is just like chugging along. It's not efficient. So that's why this is just a 2024 catalog, because I'm not shooting a lot. And then when I create when I'm doing nature and landscape, I like to identify where it is. So Maine, and then I'm going to put inside that a project. And here I could sometimes I generally put like a region or area or subject. And I was in Brownfield area, I'll put, because it's not all the images are from there. And then inside of that, I do an album, and I just label that images. So this is where all the images are. And so why do I do that? Well, this is where I'm going to import everything into this images album, but I also can create smart albums within the same project to sort them, say if it's a large quantity. And I know in particular, this is not a large quantity of photos. It's just a few that I actually took yesterday while out on a bike ride. So it's not like a huge amount of photos. And these are what I took with my actual DSLR camera versus, my phone and my GoPro. I have other gear that I'm using, but this is just what I took with my DSLR. So let's see. Welcome whoever's joining me while I edit. Just going to walk through my process. You're welcome to jump in the chat, say hi, ask questions, give your opinion on stuff. I'm always like super critical of my own photos and never can decide. I actually don't really like looking at stuff like right after I take it. I like to kind of just let it linger for an obscene amount of time before I look at it again. But it's hard to do that these days because everything moves so fast, and if I don't do it like right away, I know I'm never going to get to it. So I'm just going to just do it. So I have the album I want to import the images to, and I just click import, and then you guys can see the window. No, you can't, of course. This is just one of these little things that drives me a little crazy. So let me switch. I will, how do I do this? Okay, let me pull up the correct window so you guys can see what I'm doing. Okay, see that? Add. There we go. So this is the card, what's on the card here. So not a lot, 32 images. And, you know, I'm a pretty, like, I don't like to shoot a lot. I'm pretty, I get my composition, my idea, I execute it, and then I move on. I'm not a lingerer. I kind of have a vision of what I want to do. I do explore a little bit. I did a little bit of flower photography here. So I did explore a little bit, but I'm not spending a lot of time. I kind of have, when I'm on my bike, especially these scenes, and I'll show you when I open them more detail. I'm on my bike and I see the scene. I see the photo. I already know what the photo is before I even get off my bike. Turn around, get off my bike, get the gear, and just take the photo. And then if something else catches my eye in that moment, I'll take a few more. But typically I execute the photo that I saw in my mind's eye, then move on. Can tend to explore places longer, but kind of run and gun stuff where I'm, you know, basically standing on the road looking at someone's property, I don't really like to linger. So anyway, so I'm importing these from the card, and I'm actually going to put them on my hard drive, which is not plugged in here at the moment. All right, so I got to go get that. Oh no, it should be, I didn't bring that with me. It should be here. The audio's stuck out. Can you still hear me? Let me check my audio. Okay, it should be working. Sorry about that. Say hi if you're in the chat. I can see the chat. I'll just talk to the void. It's fine too. But here it is. This is the hard drive. I have this, like, I don't have like a desk. I have like a dresser as my desk. It's not really a dresser. What would you call it? Like a buffet counter. Like, it's huge. So I have all this storage like right in front of me. It's really nice. Okay. So I've got my hard drive. You never want to import RAWs onto your computer. Don't do it. Just don't. Get these. I get these from Walmart. It saves me a ton on my computer and makes it last a lot longer. All right, so once I have that plugged in, so I'm importing from, I don't know. Okay, so it's importing from the card, and I'm importing it to, I'm copying to folder. And then I pick my folder and find my, do you guys get to see? Yeah, you get to see my folder. All right, maybe I won't show you my folders. I don't know. There's nothing, like, I have nothing to hide, but I don't know, like, it could be personal information or something from a client or something on there. So I'll hide that for a second. And I'm going to just put, let's see, I'll do it in here. And this is going to be Maine, or I'll put Brownsfield, Maine. I hope you guys had a good 4th of July. I had an awesome time. I really should not have been vacationing as hard as I was, but I just didn't care. I wanted to enjoy myself. It's been a while since I've really, like, taken some time to just not be working. So it was nice. Okay, so let me show you my screen again. Here we go. Okay, so I've got my folder that it's importing to this folder on my hard drive. And that means it's taking it from the card and moving the RAWs to my folder on my hard drive. So that's like a backup right there. And then naming, I do, can you see this? No, oh, I didn't add it. Here we go. Okay. Sorry, guys. So my naming, year, month, day, and then the image name, which is the file name. So I organize by year, month, day, just as habit to keep things in order, especially if you're shooting a lot of things that need to be in sequence. Copyright, my name, and then description. I'm going to just leave the description blank. There's nothing really to describe about these as a collection, I guess. Not really. And I could do adjustments. I could do auto adjustments and stuff, but I'm just going to leave it like it is because it's it's a small batch. If it was a huge batch, I might do auto adjust. And then I'm going to do pick all, and we're going to import all. And those are going to populate in there, and I'll share the screen because, let's see, it's this one. Share. There we go. Okay, so they start importing. It's pretty quick, a couple seconds per an image generally. Whoever's watching, please say hi. Let me know how your 4th was. What'd you do? Anything good? I'm just editing some pictures I took on my trip. All right, so here's this bulldozer I thought was so cool, but what was super cool about this was just like there was this really cool clouds going on in the background. So I did a bracket here, kind of. But what I'm photographing with is my Lens Baby Velvet. And it does this really cool thing to the edge of the images, a blur effect. And it kind of adds a little bit of motion to it. So when I adjust some of the settings on here so you can see these more clearly, you'll see that effect more. So I go to the adjust panel and I can just do the auto exposure. And it'll probably brighten that so you can see that effect a little bit better. So you can see that the bulldozer here is sharp. Okay, but if we go up here to the trees, you get that blurred effect. And I just really love the effect of this lens, how it does. Something about it just I really enjoy. And I'm just going to bring these highlights down so we can see the clouds. And this effect is controlled by the aperture of the lens. So this is a manual focus lens. So the data is not coming through here on the camera data. So we got ISO 200, 800th of a second. And the f-stop doesn't come through because this is a manual lens. It's not talking to the camera at all, except for the light meter, which is done optically anyway. So this, I would guess, is probably f5.6, something like that, to get this effect. Whereas I didn't shoot much with a really shallow depth of field on this, because when you do with a really shallow depth of field, meaning like f2.8, 2, or even 1.6 on this lens, the blur effect gets more pronounced because it comes in closer to the center where that aperture point is in the middle of the lens. And so it creates a crazy effect, which can be cool, but can also be like a little bit too much. I like this just like subtle vignette of this blur so you can see it here in the trees. But then as we get closer to the center of the image, you can see it's perfectly sharp. So that's what I was shooting with. I shoot with it a lot. It's a very durable lens. It takes a lot of beating from me. And so I really enjoy it because of that. And then it also can make my work more creative than just your typical photo. So anyway, so that's why I was shooting with that. And that was my process for this. And I saw this driving by. I got a really good picture of this with my phone, actually, that I really like the framing of. But of course, with a fixed focal length lens that's on the camera, you don't, have much choice. You have to either crop or move back, move forward in the scene. But that's how that came out. So here, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just go through my images here. And then pick out the ones I want to edit. So I might just brighten these so I can just get a better look. This one, See, I think this one has this might be f-stop 4 on this one, I would guess. You can see the blur. If you look in the trees here, you can really see that blur in the trees is more pronounced than in this one. So I'd say this is f4, this is probably f5.6 for that different effect. And this might even be f8 because it's even less. It's possible. And I could probably tell by my shutter speed settings, that'll probably tell me as well. Yeah, so I definitely adjusted the aperture because the shutter speed is different on all of these. And the higher your aperture number, the more you need to drag the shutter. The shutter needs to be open longer, so that's why. So it gives me just a very subtle difference on those. The framing composition is obviously a little different because it's handheld, so I'm trying to ignore that part of it. Just trying to see which effect I like better. And this is just me going through like because of first round. So that kind of blur, I think that kind of just half of the track, the bulldozer being like out of focus. I don't like it as much. This is better. It's still out of focus a little bit compared to here, but it's not like when you look at it here, it's not obscene. And then here, yeah, I'm probably going to go with this middle one. And then when I know I got to pick, I just do 5 stars and I'll come back to it. And then I had the hay cart out in the field. You know, I'm not convinced that this is like the best image I've ever taken, but I don't know. I like it as like a sense of place. Took it horizontal and then vertical. I'm just looking at these. So when I stare at my screen, which maybe looks like I'm staring at you, it's because I'm just staring at these images. And I just go through these like this a lot. So I'm guessing this has just a very, very light blur on the edge. You probably wouldn't notice it unless I told you. And same with the vertical. This might even be f8 because it's so subtle. It's so subtle around the edges. And this is a little bit more pronounced. And if I bring that, I don't know. I'm not convinced on any of these, so I'm going to move on. Maybe I'll come back to that. And then this was this really creepy house I had to take a picture of it with. And now you can see this blur effect is pretty pronounced on this one. And I was trying to find the right framing, but there were cool clouds in the background here. So I did bracket this they should have the same aperture. This one and this one. But hand holding this stuff is so hard. So I think so what I can do is I'll put that back to 0 and we can look at my histogram under levels here. And it looks like there's some stuff here that's pure black. You know, that's what you don't want. You don't want the histogram to be right up on the edge there. That's not where you want to be, but I have all the highlight data, which is what I was trying to get out of this. Because here, now I have all the shadow data, right? But then I lose all the highlight data. It's just completely blown out. There's nothing there to rescue. Like, it just does not, compared to that, with all that detail in the clouds. So what happens when I just boost up the shadows here? You know, so like the black part is this like void here and then inside the windows. So this is still, in my mind, a usable image. So that will take some tweaking and I get to the cloud data. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. And this is what you would expect with a Nikon DSLR camera as far as what you get out of the raw file. There's more data in the shadows that you can rescue versus the highlights. So here the highlights have no chance. Just there's nothing there for me. Whereas the shadow data, I was able to pull out quite a bit. So that's pretty exciting. Okay, now I did some macro photography. So something cool about this lens, it's also a macro lens. So handheld macro photography, real fun if you've ever tried it. And with a manual focused lens, it's even more fun. So my strategy for this is I did delete in camera quite a bit with this series because I can tell right away I'm not going to want the image, so I just get rid of it. If I'm torn about an image, I'll leave it and I can look on the computer and decide. But for these, I was able to quickly see if the part I wanted was sharp or not, because this is such a close focus. You can instantly know. And again, this isn't the sharpest, but it's pretty good at 100%. Let's see, let's get to 100%. So that's where you want to look objectively at things, is at 100%. Zooming in further doesn't do no good. So, it's not the sharpest in the world, but it's passable. And I think obviously this is like an artistic look to this. So I'm okay with it. And I can touching the wrong slider. Go up here. Hope everyone had a great 4th and is having a good Saturday. And you're welcome to say hi if you want to in the chat, or just watch me sweat here. All right, so this one is cute. I like this picture. I like the colors. I like the colors of this one, so I'll probably work on this one. Whoops. So I'm just going through and starring the ones I want to work on. This one, it's like a poppy, I think, and the seed pod or whatever is in there. I don't know, but I liked this one a lot. Just, with flowers, it's always so perfect, so beautiful. So something that's a little bit like ugly, I like. And this, I like this a lot. Like I like this more now looking at this than I did at when I was taking it. This one was very hard to get. But you can see it's a very soft focus lens. Just the hand holding it, macro, trying to stop that motion of me just being like on coffee and all hyper all the time. So it's like, you need a tripod for this to get this stuff really sharp. So I'm holding the lens. I'm zoomed in on the live view so I can see what's sharp. And I'm just slowly moving forward, back, and I'm click, like take 5 pictures. And usually one of them is going to be like that, the one that's got the part of the scene that's sharp, because that depth of field is so shallow when you're that close to an object. It's like just a hair's length can throw something in and out of focus. So this was the one, and so I really like that. And some of this could be just motion blur, even at 2/50th of a second. But I'm pretty jittery. I don't shoot below that handheld. I just can't. So, I think that's pretty good. I like that one a lot too. Oh, and here's the same thing. I just tilted down a little bit. So I don't like this one as much. I like this one better. Just the composition of it. And here it is again. So I was trying to get it. This one's probably sharper. A little bit. And if you want to tell me no, that other one, let me know in the chat. But this is the one I like the best for composition wise. This one's definitely interesting as well. I'll give this one 4 stars. Okay, and here's another poppy. So you can see this lens can get things sharp, I swear. So there's your pollen, which is green. That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Okay, I got a few of these. So this one I took a few of because I wasn't sure if I hit, because I wanted to get this part of the flower. I'm trying to think of my high school biology or middle school biology class, what part of the flower this is. But I wanted that to be sharp, but this is so cool with the pollen that's green, that's sharp. That's so cool on that orange. So let's look at these others. Okay, so this one looks like it's sharp. A little bit more, a little bit. Okay, so that one. This one here, now that part of the flower is sharp, then we lose focus on some of these other things and the pollen a little bit. So to me, I like that one because of that being sharp versus this one. And let's look at this last one. Is the last one the perfect one? See, this is where you can drive yourself crazy. This one's my favorite out of the 4. I like this one a lot too. I just love this one. But it's just this not being sharp that's bothering me. Now, if I wanted to really get into it, I of course could take this from this photo and put it in here or vice versa. It's a slightly different angle because again, I was handheld, and that's the problem with hand holding doing macro photography. It's very hard to get the same shot twice. When in macro photography, you really actually, that's what you want. You want the same shot like 50 times so you can really fine tune that depth of field. So I have to do some compromises here, but I think I like this one the best. So I'm going to keep going. And you can say hi and leave a comment in the chat. I should be able to see it. I haven't seen anybody do that yet. So if you have done that and I haven't seen it, can you let me know by replying or send me a message or something? Because there were some issues with the chat before. And ever since I had those issues, I have no idea if it's working properly or not. All right, so these other ones, these are so pretty. So this whole area was just like some conservation area that someone had just scattered a bunch of wildflower seeds, you know, at the parking lot, and it was really pretty. Everything was blooming. I have some GoPro footage of that, which I will be sharing, but for now I'm just doing the photos. So these are just so delicate and dainty. And so this is something where you just zoom in and, you know, try and find the difference. I don't see much of one on those. It's amazing, surprisingly, how close those are. That's probably a burst of like 2 photos right after the other. So either one of these will work. I probably will go with this one, just the composition slightly better. Okay, and then here's another poppy from a side angle. So very pretty. And you can see in the background all the other flowers. Oh, I just love it. This is a really pretty spot. So this one's definitely sharper for that. All right. I don't know. This one's not as sharp, but I like the composition better. But anyway, all right. And then this one, just, I don't know. It's okay. It's a pretty flower, but for me, the pretty flower doesn't always do it for me. The color, I like the color and everything, but I don't like this color on green. So if it had more of this kind of background, I'd probably like it better. So that's just something to think about when you're taking pictures of the background always. This is okay. I'm not gonna edit it. And then here's just some views along the way that may not be worth saving. The sky it was so humid. There was just like cool clouds everywhere, just like ready to dump some rain. I could try just a quick little see what's here. Sometimes you just have to play around with the levels a little bit. See what's here. bring it out because I stopped for some reason. You have to try and remember what that was. We're going to the curves, tune it up a little. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sold on that one. It's all right. And then here is this amazing farm I took a few photos of, so I can just go through these and see which I like better. And this is with the different depth of field. So you get more of that motion blur. That probably is the one there. Let me see. Yeah, I think that's the one. Yep. Okay. So once I've kind of gone through and made my selections, then like this is just for an example. If I had I had imported hundreds of images, for example, and I went through and just selected my favorites, I can create a smart album in here, and I can just name it my picks and give it a 5-star, or I could do 4-star higher because I did do a 4-star or 3-star, or whatever you want to do. Okay, and then now I go here. Okay, why didn't it do it? You know, there's something they did. There's something that Capture One has done since the software updated when I'm importing, and they're not importing into the right place. So they didn't import to where I wanted them to go. They didn't import here. Okay, so what I'll to do, this happened last time too. So I just select all, right? And then I just drag them in to there. There we go. And now they should be here. Okay, there are my picks. They're supposed to import directly in there. I'm not sure what setting I'm missing because it used to be just a default setting. I never had to do that. So something changed in their new software. Okay, so now I have my picks, and now I can go in and start editing. And I'm going to go ahead and do my, first of all, I'm going to just do my white balance. This is the shot. The camera decided the white balance. And then I also like to just do auto and see what Capture One thinks the white balance should be. And then typically it's somewhere in between. Sometimes I eyeball it, but you can also play around with the presets, you know, like shade or cloudy. It was a cloudy day, so cloudy might be close, and kind of find the white balance you want. Now, every monitor is going to be a little bit off. So I actually don't stress too much about white balance these days unless I'm printing something. That's when I do stress about it and really think hard about what my white balance will be when I want to print it onto paper, because that's when it's going to be something that I can actually control the output of, versus every screen, every phone that someone looks at one of my pictures on, the white balance or calibration or how they perceive the colors of the images is going to be different just based on the technology. So I find what appeals to me on my monitor, and I just hope and pray that's how it looks on everything else. But I don't spend a ton of time overthinking white balance if it's just something that I'm going to reproduce digitally. But one trick you can do to dial in your white balance is you find a part of the image that is either pure black, pure white doesn't necessarily work, but pure black or a gray, like a true gray, not anything with any color in it, just a gray or a black, and you can use that to adjust your white balance. So for example, here we could go zoom in on the tractor, and the tractor tire, we could say, okay, this is kind of gray, right? But it does have mud on it, making it not a true black or gray. Whereas I could come up here to this part of the mechanics of the bucket loader here. And so I can take my eyedropper and I can go to a part of this tractor or this bucket loader that is pure black or a version of gray, and just click on it. and that'll give me white balance based off of that. And to me, that's a little bit blue, right? So this isn't the best way to do it, but it's a good way to get you to a point if you're way off. So like, for example, you're photographing inside and the lights are driving your white balance all over the place. You can use this eyedropper to kind of get you to where you need to be, and then you can fine tune it. But you can click around and try and find the, what works, what fits, and get yourself close. See, that looks too pink, but you just play around with it, right? Till you get there. And to me, that looks, about right. I might warm it up a little bit more. There we go. And then from here, I would do exposure, find where I want that exposure to live. And I typically underexpose. So I'm always brightening my photos in Capture One. Contrast, brightness, saturation, I generally don't touch. Then I come into my high dynamic range. I have my highlights. I can rescue my highlights. When there's a cloud scene like this, I'm not afraid to push the highlights all the way to rescue all the data that's there. Shadows, I'm not a big fan of that super HDR look. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I mean. But where this is beyond what the natural eye can even comprehend in a scene. Like when I was standing there looking at this, the amount of detail that camera is capturing is not visible to the human eye when we're standing there. So that's what that HDR look kind of looks fake to us, because it's not something that's based in any kind of reality. Okay. So that's when you want to just find that balance. And if it is something that, if it's a look you're trying to achieve, where you're trying to be hyper real, I guess is what the phrasing would be, then, you push that to your boundaries because that's your artistic style. That's a decision you have to make, but you have to understand it's an informed decision and you're making that decision with intention. My intention is to make the scene look how I perceived it or how I saw it with my own style or artistic interpretation of it. And mine is a little bit more realistic, but obviously it's not, because I do have the motion blur from the lens. So I am looking at it a little bit differently than what it really was. So I hope that was confusing enough. So I'm going to just bring that down, maybe get some of the shadow data, but so that there's just some detail in there. And the whites and blacks, I generally don't touch either. If for some reason there's like an extreme happening and I need to really, if there was some more cloud data I really want to pull in, so you can see I'm really bringing in the detail up here. That does get lost if I have a brighter white point. But that will deaden the contrast as well. So there's more compromises happening here the more we play around with these. So you just have to keep that in mind. And black will do the same thing. That will really push that black point in either direction, whichever way you want to go with it. But I kind of just like to sit in the middle here with these sliders, and then I do my fine tuning in the curves. But this is essentially like, a version of curves, these 4 sliders. So, but when you're used to using a tool, sometimes it's better to just use the tool that you're used to. If you're not used to using curves, then using these sliders might be where you find yourself being able to fine tune better. I just like to look at it visually like this. So I can bring the highlight in and bring it back, and I still have all that data. It's still all there for the most part. I do need to just bring that back just a little bit. There we go. So I'm looking at the clouds right now, and I'm getting those to where I want to be. So adding some more, a little bit of a curve to the contrast of the clouds here. So the midpoint is still where it always was, like the main mid-tones of the image, or where I set them from the beginning. I'm just playing with the highlights now here on this side of the curve. So I'm bringing in the pure white point, which is essentially the slider. It's not going to show it here for me because I'm manipulating this. So I'm bringing in that pure white point, and you can see that's making this very top part of the image white almost, but not quite. And then this is the highlights, the space in between the mid-tone and the white point. This is the highlights. So that's going to be mostly the clouds. It's probably going to affect some of the sand, a couple of other things here and there. But for the most part, this is just going to be affecting the clouds. So that's where I'm looking mostly. And you'll see it does, as I drag that, it is manipulating the shadows because I haven't locked that in. So I try not to pay attention to that, but you can also just lock in the shadows, and then play around with the highlights. And we'll come back to the shadows here in a second. But you can see I can get some beautiful detail in these clouds because this image struck me because of the clouds. And when you just have the flat raw file, you don't necessarily see it. But if you were there, you would have seen it. Now I'm getting some weird chromatic aberration over here in the blurry part of the trees. So I do want to be conscious of that because I don't want that to be distracting. So I'm going to just bring that back a little bit so that's not as distracting. Yeah, see, when I really push that is when you can start to see that. And this is just stupid little details, but to me, that's what makes me not like an image. Like something like this over here, what's happening would make me not like this image. So I'm going to just keep playing around with that till I get that where I want it. And it might be something where I have to manipulate the highlights in even more fine-tuned. Something like that. And I can undo and redo, whoops, to preview that. So you can see the difference that doing this has done. And I'm getting like kind of a purpley look, which I'll have to think about if that's really what the look I want. I don't remember it being like that. And that could just be my white balance again, needing to be adjusted. So the next part will be my shadows. I just like to just see what happens when I play around with that. And I think I will just drop the shadows down a little bit here. And I'll bring the mid-tone up a little bit more to get this where I want it. So just having fun editing photos. Is there anyone out there want to say hi? I got a like I see a thumbs up on Facebook, so thanks for the thumbs up. Appreciate you. And if you can drop a message in the chat, say hi. You're welcome to. I'd love to see who's here and what you were up to for the 4th of July. How was your holiday? All that stuff. So I'm just editing a photo of a bulldozer in a sand pit right now because it was cool. Maybe I'll go to a flower. It's a little more, or maybe the creepy house. We'll get to that soon. But this stuff I always will come back to. This is over processed to me. There's a fine line, right? Like it's such a fine line being under or over processed. And I want all that detail in the clouds. And if I really fell in love with this image, there's a lot of fine-tuned stuff I can do with the tablet as far as like painting in areas that I want certain edits to be only apply. Like, so I could edit just this certain area of the clouds to really make those pop. I like this image, so I don't know. There's something about it. It's like the shape of it and the I don't know, something about it. Just I really like this. And so from there, I may go back to my white balance again. And I think it's just got too much of the pink in there. and that's what's throwing me off a little bit. But, you know, it's getting where I want it to be, and I almost think it's crooked as well. So let's see, I think that's in the refine panel. Stuff moved around. Maybe not. Shape? Yes, shape panel. Okay, so here, rotation and flip. And I can always go to the window and add whatever tool I need if I can't find it. And here I can just level this out a little bit. I'm just so picky about a photo being level. I think that's probably right. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Okay, so that one's pretty much there. It's a little underexposed. So I do need to brighten it. There we go. And then I can go back and make sure the highlight's where I want it. Someone's lighting off fireworks. I just saw a flash. Okay, so I like that. That's like 90% there. What I can do, I'll show you how I do add. Sometimes I do add a filter. And I haven't shown that before, so maybe I'll show that. So to add a filter, I would go into my layers here and add a new layer. And I want it to be a filled adjustment layer. Okay, so it's at 100%. And what I do is I go then to the Style tab, and I just look at, well, there's some serious fireworks going on, or a thunderstorm, I can't tell. And I go to my presets. Where are they? Here we go, custom styles. And I can go in, like I like the film presets a lot. And what I do is I just go through these and find one that is not perfect, but like I can see it's almost there. It's like almost what I'm looking for. And so I kind of just go through these and see what I can find. And if there's one that's like, it kind of has it for me. Like this is close. This is, that almost is there. So that's FL5. I kind of just make a mental note. And you just kind of play around with these. And there's lots of different presets. I purchased a pack a million years ago and I've just been using that. So 5 was my favorite here, but let me go through it again. That's no. 2, no. 3. That's close to. So 3, 4, no. 5. So what's the difference, do you think? This just looks more saturated to me. So I'm really going to go with 5. And so I don't touch anything. I go back now to my adjustment panel, and I'm on the filled layer. And I go to the 3 dots here, and I go to apply adjustments from, custom styles, film, 5, apply. And it won't apply everything. What it won't apply is, I think, film grain, which is fine. I don't need that, and a few other things. But for the most part, we're going to get there. And then this is what I do. I dial down the opacity of this new layer with the preset on it, because this is too much to me. So I dial it down to get to where I want it to be. So sometimes that's as little as like 25%. Sometimes, usually around 60% is like the go-to for me on applying a kind of color grading or preset or something like that. But this one, I think maybe 40, and then I can turn it off and on, and you can see it's just like that finishing little bit of pop that does it, and it's not overdone. So that would be like, for this image in particular, I think it responds well to using a preset. I don't always do that. All right, so next one is the creepy house. And the first thing I'm going to do is straighten this because it's driving me crazy. So we do that. Look at the roof line. Okay. Pretty good. That looks pretty good. Okay. Oh my gosh, I'm just sitting here sweating. It's still hot here. It's going to be a hot week. All right. Now here I go to my adjustment panel and can see what the auto white balance does. That almost looks better than the as shot, but I also could go ahead here with my eyedropper and go to like this part is white, you know, or a gray white paint. And that gives me pretty accurate white balance because that's almost a white or a version of gray. So that's how you can kind of use what's in the image to get an accurate white balance. And this still looks crooked to me. So I'm going to just fine tune it with, that's better. Okay. Next, exposure. We're going to brighten the exposure here. I'm not worried about the sky at this moment. I just want to make sure I have everything that I want exposure corrected. Okay, so that looks good. HDR, now I can pull back the highlights from the clouds and the shadows, which we pulled out already. And white point and black point I'm going to ignore. And then I'm going to go ahead down to my curves. And this is going to be the clouds. So I want to get as much as the clouds as I can as far as detail. And I'm probably like, this technique I'm doing is probably so outdated. I have no idea. I haven't taken like a workshop or anything in photography in like 10 years. So I'm probably doing like a lot of outdated stuff, but this is what I've always done. So I'd love to know what people do now. Do you just hit like magic button and it does it for you? I don't know. But I like to get to where what I was seeing when I was there. I really do remember what my intention when I'm taking a photo, and what my end result was. And I think about that the whole time. So from my settings in my camera to the, ISO, f-stop, shutter speed, everything, where I'm standing, focal length. Am I crouched down? Am I standing tall? Am I lifting the camera up above my head and tipping it down? All these things to get to the image that I imagined when I was looking at the scene. And that's what I do with my editing too. I want to reach that point as well. All right, and so I can do this to lock in the highlights, and then we can start with the shadows, and then I can start editing the highlights, which looks pretty good to me. I don't really want to play around with that too much because the sky can borderline look fake so easily. So I'm just going to check my messages here. Oh, thank you for the retweets and the likes, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you. Even if you're watching or not. I don't know. I'm not getting any messages in the chat, so I don't know. But I appreciate the sharing. Always. Thank you, guys. On X, if anyone's watching this on YouTube or on Facebook, I'm telling you, on X, there's some of the best people I've met online. It's really awesome. All right, so we're going to keep editing the creepy house. And so I've got the highlights, the clouds looking pretty good where I want them. And then the shadows, I might drop it down a little bit because we do want the house to be creepy. I think that's important. I'm just sweating here. Just sitting here sweating. This is crazy. Maybe I should put my fan on. Do you think that'll like mess up the mic? Maybe if I just have it like on my feet or something. I'm not like a fan person though, so I'm not, but it's like a little bit obscene today. I can't get this thing to work. Okay. There we go. That should help. Okay. So yes, shadows. The black point looks pretty good to me. I'm not going to monkey around with that. I'm going to just bring those shadows down. And then let's play around with the mid-tone. I don't want it to be, that looks pretty good. Now I can show before and after. I think if I do this, yeah, before and after with just the curves. And I'm just looking at this. So when I pause, this just means I'm looking at the screen, analyzing what I'm doing, seeing what I want to do next. And what I could do is I could also apply the same preset that I applied to the previous photo to this. So if this was like a series and I want them to have that same look, kind of, I could do that. So like I get the photo to where I want it, which this is pretty close. I thought I saw a comment, but it disappeared. Okay. So this is pretty close. I think this is where I want it. And what I would do, so if I want to take the same preset, so I would rename this layer. We'll rename it because this was FL5 so that I know. But what I can do is I can copy this layer, I'm pretty sure. Maybe not. Okay, so let me see. Let's see. If I take this and I drag it and put it on this, will it do it? No, it won't do it. I was hoping it would. So what I do here is I know this is FL05 preset and at 40%. So I can go here to this one. No, I know what I'm supposed to do. I completely blanked on what I was supposed to do. So I click the original image that has the preset that I want. Shift click on the image I want the preset applied to. So then I go to the top of the panel. The settings that I want to copy in the panel are this panel only. Shift and I click this arrow and it says applied adjustments. There we go. I think there's a way to do this. I've done this thousands of times. So now you can see that FL05 preset is applied at 40%. Now we can turn it off and on and see what it did. And what happened here is it got rid of the yellowness mostly, it looks like, and added a little bit different look to it. I do like it. Do I like it better? This seems like warmer, right? And this has more, I don't know. So what I can do is I can click on this and I can drop down the opacity even more. So it's even less powerful. And that's something that I kind of like. So now we're applying the same preset, but it's tweaked to this image itself. And I like this image a lot. And it's interesting because you can see this image, the edges are blurry from the Lens Baby. So you can really see it when you look at architecture. Sharp, not sharp. And this is an effect you can add in post, right? I could do that, but why would you do that? I don't know. Why would I shoot with this lens? I don't know. And there's a hot pixel. That's a hot pixel right there. That means I need a new camera. All right, so that one I'm liking. I might actually just go to my exposure and brighten it. So I want to make sure I'm on the image layer. Come back to exposure and maybe just brighten it a hair. Yeah, there we go. So now I look at this one again. I'm like, maybe that needs to be brightened more too. I do this a lot. I always make everything too dark. All right. There we go. I like that. I like that a lot because it's just so old and dingy, and it's just like so beautiful in the clouds. Okay, flower photos. So let's see. I'm going to just close that panel. Now what happens with the white balance? Doesn't really do anything. Okay, we'll just leave that as it is. And exposure, something like that. Highlights. This is going to be very minute details because we don't have the sky, which is going to have like these crazy highlights, and we don't have like a deep dark shadow area. This is more of a painterly type of image, so the editing is going to be a little bit more fine-tuned, so you can see what happens when I move the slider in both directions, like to the extreme. And I almost like having the highlights a little bit pushed to the extreme to just add some dynamics to the image, because it's a little flat. You know, it looks nice here, but it's flat. So this will help add a little bit of dimension. And then the shadows probably the same, right? So if we bring the shadows down, it's probably going to help add some dimension to that. So if I remove what I just did, just those two settings, what that did just made it come almost more 3D. And then we go down to my curves here and we can see what's going on. And I can really push, these are the highlights that I can really push. And then the shadows as well. So a lot of the shadow data is this blue. So if I push that blue, it really changes the look of these flowers in the background, doesn't it? From this kind of soft to something more dramatic, for sure. So I kind of like the background just being a little bit soft, so I think I'm going to leave that as it is. Then I'm going to bring my midpoint here. And this is just like getting so pretty. Like the colors were just so beautiful in this flower patch. I hope everyone's having a great night. Feel free to say hi. Let me know where you're up to, how your holiday was. And I'm just playing around with the midpoints. So I'm playing around with the highlights. So you can see what I'm doing here. You always push these to the extreme. So you see what it does. So you see exactly what you're manipulating. Okay. And then you can just dial it in. Same thing with the shadows. Really push it. What am I affecting when I do this? There we go. And this is just the RGB curve. I could really go nuts in here, you know, with each of the colors, especially an image like this, which is very like, we've got yellow, we've got green, and we've got, you know, blue, purple, which is a mix of blue and red. So we've got those colors that we can manipulate these quite a bit on a very specific level if you want to go that deep. I don't. I don't want to go that deep. So here we go. I'm just continuing to tweak and play around with these until I get what I want it, what I want. I want it to be a little bit painterly, but I do want it to have some dimension as well. So it's a balance, right? And here I might just be bumping up the exposure again. I think that's too much. So I might do like 3.5 here. Yeah. And would I crop this? I don't like cropping unless it's like a necessary thing to do, kind of like black and white. I don't typically do anything in black and white unless it's like I have no choice, or it enhances the image in some way, meaning that the color is actually taking away from the subject. Then I would put it into black and white. So that can happen when a photo is kind of emotional. Sometimes the color is distracting in that story you're trying to tell in the photo. So that's when I would switch it to black and white. All right, and so the same thing with cropping. I'm not going to crop something just to crop it. I'm going to crop it because it's improving the composition, it's improving the story I'm trying to tell in the image, or an error made when photographing or something. And I always am very reluctant to crop, but this one almost needs it, I think. So if I undo before, after, I don't know, maybe maybe it being a little off is what makes it a good picture. All right, I'll just leave it. And now I want it brighter. Not that bright. Okay. Now look at these again. Brighter. Now this one doesn't look, this one, something's off on this one now. I always have to go back and look at stuff. Something's off on this one. What's off? The shadows. It's the white balance. It's just, okay. You want to see how an artist drives themselves crazy. This is it. You get to watch it live. Okay. All right, moving on. Here, this one I'm very intrigued to edit, and I'm excited because I think this is a very cool picture. All right, so white balance. And I can play around because this is a white almost. Somewhere kind of in the middle there. Okay, so that looks good. And then exposure. I'm generally at least a stop under exposed on average, so that's always a good starting point for me. And then highlights. Just a little bit of detail in those outer petal edges. And the shadows, I might drop down as well. And then go ahead to my curves. And I'm pulling in, what I'm doing here is and if anyone has any questions about what I'm doing, please drop your questions in the chat and let me know. But I'm just bringing in the highlight to the first point where there's any highlight data. After this point, there's nothing there. That's just gray pixels. There's nothing there. So there's no reason to have my white point over here. It's not doing anything for the image. It's just, there's nothing going on. So I can just move this over here and it already enhances the contrast without losing any of the detail in the image. And then same thing with the shadows. I can bring that in to where it first hits a point in the histogram here. And then I can bring my midpoint back to where it's supposed to be, and I can make the tweaks as we go here. On the highlight end, this is the highlights. It's pretty straightforward. Mostly here, I need to worry about the shadows and the midtones on this image, and see how that just pops it. You can zoom in. Okay, so I can show you before, after with the curves adjustment. So that looks pretty good to me. I'm happy with that. I might tweak just the white balance a little bit, something like that. And I think we're there. A little bit brighter. All right, so yeah, once you kind of get a rhythm for these things, now it's going to be very similar. Now the white balance in theory for all these flowers should be the same because they were all in the same field, very close to each other under the same lighting. So theoretically, I could just figure out one and apply it to all of these. And I got a bug bite while I was sitting here and my ankle itches. But I'm going to give each image, see, like this now looks so cool compared, like you can see how it's supposed to be like that. It's even still pretty cool in color temperature. Probably something like that is more accurate. Yeah. All right. So that's the auto. And compared to this is 50/20. That's 48. So we can try around 5,000. Okay, and exposure. All right. I'm just checking my inbox here. All right. So this one, so bright, so pretty. Just looking at it, I'm looking at this background, this pink here, and I was like, oh, do I need to crop that out? But then I see the pink down here as well. So now I think it ties together. So I'm okay with that. Okay, so we've got, I probably do want this to be brighter. Highlights. Probably just bring that all the way down. Shadows. I think I might just leave that in the middle. And I'm going to come down here. It's like blinding me. So bright. And then the shadow detail is good. I don't think bringing that in does anything. And then we're going to do this, this, this. That is such a bright fuchsia. it's going to be hard to look at any other pictures after looking this picture. It's like destroying my eyeballs. All right. I almost want to bring the saturation down, right? It doesn't even look real. Oh, there was a nice cool breeze just then. What happens if I bring the saturation down? Does that help it, you think? All right, I like that. I like this one. It's fun doing flower photography with the Lens Baby. It's just fun because you get these cute little images isolated because the depth of field is just so nice, and it makes such a wonderful scene. Okay, and then I did 2 of these. So what I can do here now is I have all the settings I applied to this one. I shift click the second one that's unedited, and then I just go in and copy the adjustments I made. So white balance, I hold down shift and apply adjustment. Exposure, shift, apply adjustment. High dynamic range, shift, apply adjustment. And then I did the curves, which may need tweaking, but it should be pretty close. So I shift and applied adjustment. So we can look and see that one. And this one just needs to be tweaked just a little bit because it's still a different picture. So it has its own wants and needs, but it got us pretty close to where we needed to be. Yeah. Right. And this one might even, the exposure is what might be off on it. Just slightly. You know, a sun came out for the clouds for a second. So the composition on this one, I don't know. Maybe I like it. I don't know. I like this one better. What do you guys think? First, this is number 1. This is number 2. Put in the chat which one. Do it. Tell me. Number 1 or number 2? I like number 1 better. All right, we'll see if anyone does it. I know there's people watching. All right, this one is another one of my favorites. Ooh, I love this flower. It looks like a type of satin, like a dress, crinkly satin. And what I could do to shortcut this is I could take this poppy seed, right? Clicked on that, and I'm doing Command on my Mac, click. So I'm just selecting these 2. So the first one has all the adjustments applied. This one doesn't. So I could take the adjustments applied to this and apply it to this and see what we get. You know, it could, that's a little extreme, right? That took it to another world, but that's pretty cool looking. So I'm going to reset the curve and work off the curve because the rest of the settings, it did pretty good. Just going to bring that in. Oh my God, this is like, these colors are just unreal. Look at this. This is crazy. See, if I was still there where these flowers are, I would go back because this is just, that is just such a cool color combination. Such a cool color combination. I don't want to, I want that detail. see what's going on when I tweak that. And then this just popped on the pure green backdrop of this. Oh my God, I love this photo so much. It's so cool. That is just so cool. I love this one. All right, so that one is pretty much good. So you can see how much quicker it is when you can like apply the adjustments from a previous image. Oops. And might just warm these up a tad. And then because this is white, like the main point of the main tone of this image, if we were to average the entire image and make it 1 pixel, that tone of it is going to be brighter than middle gray. And this is getting super technical. But if I do auto exposure on this, it's going to be too dark. So I have to actually do this manually and get this visually where I want it. That looks pretty good. And highlights, I could bring back the highlights and probably bump up the exposure again and bring back the highlights just so I get some detail in those petals. And then the shadow I'll probably knock down as well so we get some more contrast and give those the petals that 3D look effect, because they are 3D, they are real, except for in the photo they're not. And then we do the curves. And we get, oh my God, beautiful. Because when I looked at this image in the back of the camera, I was like, why did I even bother taking a picture of this? But now that I'm doing these adjustments, I can see, I'm like, now I'm seeing what I saw when I was there. There was beautiful, like delicate details on these flowers. And it could easily be lost in there. All right, I might brighten this a little bit. Okay, it's pretty cool. All right, so I got another thumbs up on Facebook. Whoa, thank you. Thank you, whoever did that. Appreciate you. And thank you, the people who shared and reposted. I appreciate that. You know, I'm always excited to make new friends online and share my knowledge with you guys. And that's amazing. I've been going for almost an hour and a half, but these pictures are at like, I'm glad I brought my camera that day, because usually the day before I just brought my phone. It's my, like, you know, walking around camera's phone. And I had the route I took, it was so interesting. There were just lots of really interesting little scenes and things that I saw. It was like, oh, I kind of wish I had my actual Nikon with me. And it's raining pretty hard here all of a sudden. And so the next day when I went for my bike ride, I was like, okay, I'll bring the Nikon this time. And I'm glad I did, because this kind of photo editing, you just can't do with the phone photos. You can do it to a point and they look good on the screen, but you'll never get that fine tuning that I want to achieve to hopefully print these, because that, when you print something, that tells the truth about what you captured. You can make almost anything look good on a screen with 72 pixels per an inch. When you have to print something at 300 pixels per an inch, that tells a lot. That tells a lot about what the quality is of what you're doing. And I really like this picture that's just sitting here on the screen. So let's work on it. The composition of this is all about shape. This one's all about shape, and then the color on top of it just takes it to a new level. I'm really enjoying these flower photos. Who knew I would be so into these today? White balance looks good to me, honestly. So I'm going to leave that as it is. Exposure's not too bad for once for me. That's pretty close to the correct exposure, which is shocking. I don't shoot that way. So it must have been an accident. Maybe it did start raining while I was out there, so that might have been what it was. And then tweaking the highlights. I might just brighten the highlights a little bit here, just to give it a little dimension. And then the shadows, same thing. I'm just going to give it a little bit of shadow detail. And like, this is just a beautiful image, not even doing anything to it. But we can keep doing it. So we're going to bring this part in. Shadow detail, I'm going to leave as is. And we're just going to do minor S-curve, ever so slightly. And what's kind of fun to do too, something like this where the image is just like so perfect, you almost don't want to ruin it. What I can do is reset the curve. I can go to my layers. I can add a new layer, new filled adjustment layer. And I'm going to name this curves. And this is when you want to do some really like fine tuning. Now I can go ahead and do my rough run through with the curves. Do an S curve, kind of more extreme than I would do. Right? So this is like kind of pushing it to the extreme. It's like making everything a little bit too much beyond what I wanted to do. But now I'm on this adjustment layer, so I can bring back the opacity to where I think it should be. Right? And I'm able to fine tune it a little bit better than going in here and really just like playing with these points on the curves. It's much easier to just run this toggle and get it to where I want to be. So something like that. And I can see before and after. And that's just another little trick for the tool bag. Okay, so my flowers I got edited. These are really beautiful. I go back through them. And they came out great. So this one looks a little dark to me. Going to go back to the original and just pop that out, because these are going to probably be some sort of a series of images together. They go together quite nicely. All right, and then the last one is this. This is a tougher image to edit. We've got the sky. We've got some landscape. It's at, sunset almost. It's like right before dusk. So this needs some help. Okay, the white balance, it's going to be wrong because it's just how it is. It's time of day. This got to be much warmer than the auto settings will do. And I'm going to be careful with so something like that is a good starting point. And then exposure, I'm going to be very careful with that as well. And highlights, I don't want to make it look fake and the clouds, so I'll just do a little adjustment there. And then the shadows, I'm going to just brighten up slightly. Okay. Now to the curves, bring that in. I'd really like to know if the chat's working, if anyone is sending messages in the chat. I don't see them. So maybe they aren't coming through. I don't think they're coming through. Now I'm seeing this warning here. Well, they should be coming through. Strange. All right, this is the last image, folks. And then I'm going to bed. But I wanted to get these done. And I don't know, should I do an export? I don't know. If you're watching on YouTube, you could probably comment and I might see it. So I'm just tweaking, playing around with these. This one is one that would probably do well with a preset. Okay, here we go. Now we're getting it. Now we're finding it here. There we go. And that's closer. I can brighten it. And bring back the highlights. Okay, so now we'll try that preset that I put. Well, this is such a different time of day from these earlier ones. So this is earlier in the day. Totally different sensibility than this being basically sunset. So I'm going to pick a new adjust style preset. I need to get rid of that. I need to make sure that this is a filled adjustment layer. And then I go ahead over to the style tab and just play around with these till I find the one that fits the images. So you'll see a lot of these are already, they're stripping out the detail in the clouds, a lot of these. So I don't want one that changes the color or strips away the color in these clouds. So six is maintaining, but then the rest of it just doesn't look good. So 7 has potential. 9, 10, and then there's even black and white ones. That kind of looks cool. 11. But what was it, 7? Or 6? Okay, so I think I'll go with 7. Or I could even do a different, I could do like one of these cinematic ones. This might be better for this time of day. I feel like that one looks very good. Cinematic 3. That even looks nice, doesn't it? Because these are more like color grading versus what the film looks do. Ooh, that looks nice. It's all about just trying, see what appeals to you. So there was a couple here that looked good. Let me go back through these. This one, 3. And you can even layer these. So I could take 2 of these adjustment layers and layer them. So like 6 and 3. So I could layer these. Let's do it. See what happens. So we'll do CM3 here. And then I will add another filled adjustment layer. And we'll do CM6. Okay, I'm going to just turn off CM6, click CM3, go to the 3 dots, apply adjustments from, Cinematic 3, apply, and then I can bring that down to 60. That's where I kind of like to start. And then here I can go to CM6, apply adjustments from, there, bring that down to 60 and see what happens. So with 2, you can see it's just like too much, right? So I can bring these down, turn 1 on, off. So it can get like, now when I look at this, I don't know what's doing what, what's happening here. It's affecting the wheat field, whereas this one is affecting the whole image, right? So it can get a little bit like too much, overwhelming when you are using multiples of these, but it can be done. So you just have to be, try it out. And you can even shut one off, shut the other one off, see what fits. And this might just not be a very good image. That could always be the case. It's cool, but it's not my favorite. I'm really into the flowers, and these two as well. So this one at the end, it was a beautiful scene being there, but I don't know. I have to think about this one some more, and I'm open to ideas. If someone has ideas about what I should do with this, because I don't know. I kind of like the composition of it, but something's off on it, and I can't quite get my finger on it right now. So if anyone has any ideas, I am open to that. So I love a little critique or suggestion, or like, what would you do? Anyway, so that's what I have for you tonight. I'm gonna go ahead and relax, watch a YouTube video or something. Hope you have a great night. Thanks for watching me edit. I hope this helped you, and maybe a lot of these ways I edit you can apply when using Lightroom or even in Photoshop. A lot of these same features are available to you. So just a little bit different. The layout, the look, where everything is just going to look a little bit different for you. But you can take the techniques and things that I've shown you and apply them to whatever program you're using to edit your photos. So hope you try it out, and I'd love to see your work. So make sure you share it with me. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for hanging out.